There is no evidence to suggest either of the Dermonds were killed inside their house. There is also no evidence of the exact time and date of their deaths. Sheriff Sills said Shirley Dermond was working on a crossword puzzle out of USA Today that's left on the kitchen table. The Dermond's bed was unmade, and Russell Dermond was found laying on top of his bathrobe, wearing his boxers and a t-shirt. When Shirley Dermond's body is found in Lake Oconee, she is completely dressed.
To Sheriff Howard Seals joining us from Putnam County. Sheriff, that tells you about what time of the day do you think these two were murdered?
Well, again, we don't really know because of talking to the Dermond's children. We learned that when Mr. Dermond would get up in the morning, if he didn't have anything to do, that he would lounge around for several hours, sometimes with his robe and bedclothes on. However, her custom was when she got up, she immediately became dressed. We do know that a man was seen, or somebody was seen in their yard on the Saturday uh, before the Kentucky Derby. So we actually think, because of all of that together, that this probably happened initially sometime Saturday during the daytime.
Well, I'm curious, just looking at people's behavior. He still had on his boxers and a t shirt. She was doing the crossword puzzle. Joining me is Dr. John Delatorre, renowned psychologist and mediator who specializes in forensic psychology. Dr. Delatorre, number one, I need to know the date of the USA Today crossword puzzle. And it is just striking me that this was in the morning, which makes this even more of an aberration, an oddity.
Yeah, because they're unprepared, right? There's nothing to suggest that anything is going on in their daily lives that made them afraid of whatever it is that's going on. Even if there was an individual in their yard, it certainly doesn't appear as though that individual shouldn't be there, right? So there's a lot that's sort of just the routine, right? The mundane, the regular things that these two individuals kind of go through. They weren't expecting any of this to happen. So they weren't prepared. This is not so much a blitz attack because there's nothing to suggest in the home that, all of a sudden there was some kind of fight, but there is something in which they were unprepared and they just kind of uh, it was just unexpected, and instead of using force, the individual probably used some kind of coercive technique, whether it was a gun or a weapon or something like that. But there was more coercion, more verbal threats, more than there was physical threats.
Joe Scott Morgan joining us, professor of forensics. It's not all about fingerprints and fibers. Let's take a look at it, Joe Scott. Number one, the date of the USA Today paper. Was it her custom to do the crossword in the mornings? Were coffee cups sitting out on the kitchen table? Was there a pot of coffee still in the coffee maker? Was there anything in the crock pot? Were there dishes out from lunch? Or did it look more like dinner? We know that they didn't show up for the Kentucky Derby party, so that gives us a clue as to the end. They were dead by that time. What else would you look for, Joe Scott?
Well, Sheriff Seals has done the right thing by going to speak with the family. It's something we do in investigations to just try to get take a temperature of what their daily routine looks like, and you have to try to understand that. And are there any moments in time that deviate from those normal behaviors moving forward? Uh, I think that also one of the things, and if we believe that there may have been more than one individual involved in this, I think that it would be very important to try to examine any kind of available digital evidence that might be available from back during that time period, as far as phone records, anything that came off of any of the towers back then. I don't know if that's necessarily possible, but it's certainly something that's intriguing. If you've got one person in the yard, perhaps, are they communicating with someone else that could facilitate bringing a boat around? Because that's the rub, isn't it? How do you get a boat into a location where you're running the risk in broad daylight of people being seen at their dock or their mooring location there? How does this work? So there has to be communication involved in this. I think that's certainly something to look at.